Ambassador Krell's morning started with coffee that tasted like regret, and ended with 12 apex predators walking through his academy's front door. "They're here," his assistant Yenna whispered, her antenna quivering. "The Vraxxians." Krell watched through his office window as the transport shuttle descended. Obsidian scales, retractable claws that could shred durasteel, eyes that tracked movement with the precision of military targeting systems. These weren't students. These were nightmares with enrollment papers. The Vraxxian species had conquered 43 star systems before the Treaty of Kesselar convinced them that diplomacy was more efficient than orbital bombardment. Barely. And now their juveniles were here. For education. For cultural exchange. Krell took another sip of terrible coffee. "Has anyone told them about the human?" Yenna asked. "No." "Should we?" "Absolutely not." Krell set down his mug. "The moment we mention Mira Astrid, the Council will evacuate her. That violates the Earth-Zenith Accord, the Human Integration Clause, and about 15 other treaties I can't pronounce before breakfast. So the plan is, keep them separated. Different wings, different schedules. The Vraxxians get the combat training facilities. Mira stays in the recreation sphere. Nobody dies. I keep my job. Simple." Yenna's antenna drooped. "Ambassador, when has anything involving humans ever been simple?" "Fair point." The Vraxxian cubs filed into the Academy's entrance hall. Each one stood 8 feet tall, even hunched. Their scales shifted colors subtly, black to dark green to something that looked like liquid shadow. Cultural briefings called it mood scaling. Combat analysts called it terrifying. The lead cub's name was Kareth. His file said he'd completed his first hunt at age 4, standard Vraxxian development. Krell descended to greet them personally. Protocol demanded it. "Welcome to the Galactic Integration Academy," he said, keeping his voice steady. "We're honored to host." Kareth's head snapped to the left. His nostrils flared. Oh no. All 12 cubs turned simultaneously. Predator synchronization. Their eyes fixed on the corridor leading to the recreation sphere. "What?" Kareth rumbled. "Is that scent?" 43 minutes later, Dr. Velis was having the worst shift of his academic career. The Vraxxian cubs had been assigned to combat fundamentals in Wing 3. Somehow, and Velis would be investigating this for months, they'd detected something. A scent. A sound. Some stimulus that activated every hunting instinct in their genetically perfect predator brains. Now they were moving, not running. That would be less terrifying. They were stalking, spreading out in a formation that military tacticians would recognize as a pursuit pattern. Velis's security feed showed them converging on the recreation sphere from multiple angles, where Mira was building a block tower. "Evacuation protocol," Velis hissed into his comm. "Now!" "Sir, we can't. She's in the middle of a structured activity. Interrupting would violate her educational. There are 12 apex predators about to breach that room." "I'm aware, sir. But regulations are very clear about." Velis cut the connection and sprinted for the recreation sphere himself. He arrived 30 seconds too late. The cubs had already entered, silent, coordinated. They'd fanned out in a perfect encirclement, cutting off every exit. Mira sat in the center, completely oblivious, humming a song while stacking purple blocks on blue blocks. Kareth moved first. Low, controlled, every muscle coiled. Velis's hand hovered over the emergency alarm. Kareth sat down. He just sat down. Then he picked up a red block with claws designed for tearing through armor plating, tilted his head, and tried to balance it on top of Mira's tower. It fell. Mira looked up. "You gotta do it gentle," she said, demonstrating with careful hands. "See? Gentle." Kareth tried again. The block wobbled. Stayed. Mira grinned. "You did it." A low rumble came from Kareth's chest. Velis's translator struggled for a moment before settling on. "Satisfactory." One by one, the other cubs broke formation. They approached the tower, picked up blocks, started stacking. 12 apex predators. Playing. Velis pulled out his datapad and started typing field notes with shaking hands. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Okay, so that's Vesh, And that's Dren. And you're Kareth, right? Mira pointed at each cub. They nodded, or did whatever passed for nodding among their species. Velis kept documenting. This was unprecedented. Vraxxians didn't play. They trained. They hunted. They established dominance hierarchies through ritualized combat. They didn't sit in circles learning color names. Now we're going to learn about sharing, Mira announced. Who wants to go first? Kareth reached for a block. So did Vesh. They both grabbed it. Vesh's growl started low. Kareth's eyes narrowed. Velis saw the micro-movements, weight shifting, claws extending just slightly. Oh no. Hey! Mira stood up, hands on her hips. We use our words, not our scary sounds. The growling stopped. Velis held his breath. Vesh, tell Kareth what you want. Kareth, you listen. Vesh's translator kicked in. I require the blue block for structural stability. See? Mira looked at Kareth. He asked. Now you can say yes or no. Kareth stared at the human child, then at the block, then back at Mira. He may have the block, Kareth said slowly. Good. Now say you're sorry for the scary sound. Silence. Velis's datapad nearly slipped from his hands. I apologize, Kareth rumbled, for the threatening vocalization. A Vraxxian apex predator. Apologizing. Velis made a note. Recommend immediate xenopsychology review. Possibly recommend therapist for self. That's when the security system woke up. Alarms shrieked. Red lights flooded the recreation sphere. Automated voices announced in 17 languages. Code Vermilion. Predator class threat detected. Initiating lockdown. Blast doors slammed down. The room sealed. Mira dropped her blocks. What's happening? The cubs shifted instantly back to combat formation. But this time, they weren't hunting. They were protecting. Kareth positioned himself between Mira and the blast doors. The other cubs formed a perimeter, facing outward, scales shifting to aggressive crimson. Velis's comm exploded with chatter. The council was mobilizing. The Vraxxian High Command was demanding explanations. Someone was screaming about treaty violations. And in the middle of it all, a 7-year-old human girl looked up at the apex predator who'd learned to share 5 minutes ago and asked, Kareth? I'm scared. The massive cub's eyes softened. Actually softened. Do not fear. We will not permit harm. Velis updated his notes one final time before the communication networks went into emergency mode. Hypothesis: humans don't survive first contact with apex predators. Apex predators survive first contact with humans. Barely. The lockdown timer read 6 hours, 22 minutes until manual override. It was going to be a very long day. The Galactic Council had never convened so fast. 14 minutes from alarm to full session. A record that would stand for decades, fueled entirely by pants-wetting terror. Ambassador Krell stood in the center of the council chamber, watching his career circle the drain in real time. Around him, holographic projections of the galaxy's most powerful species flickered with what he could only describe as pre-panic panic. Explain, demanded Council Member Zixith, their crystalline form pulsing an aggressive orange. Explain how Vraxxian combat juveniles are currently in an enclosed space with a human child. It was the security system, Krell said. Automated response to Predator-class biosignatures. I didn't... The Vraxxian High Command is requesting clarification, announced another council member. Krell's stomach dropped. In Vraxxian, requesting clarification translated more accurately to fueling warships while we decide which planet to glass first. How long until manual override? Zixith asked. 6 hours, 12 minutes. And the current status of the subjects? Someone pulled up the live feed. The council went silent. On screen, Mira sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by 12 8-foot apex predators arranged in a defensive perimeter. She was teaching them a hand-clapping game. Pat a cake, baker's man, Mira sang, demonstrating the movements. Kareth attempted to mimic her with claws that could punch through battle armor. He missed. Tried again. His massive hands moved with the delicacy of someone defusing a bomb. Bake me a cake as fast as you can. 3 cubs were actually succeeding. Sort of. Their scales had shifted to a confused purple. What? Zixith said slowly. Are we watching? I believe, Krell said. It's called playing. That's not possible. Vraxxians don't. Apparently they do now. A new alert flashed. Krell's blood turned to ice water. High Command has dispatched an emissary, someone announced. ETA, 2 hours. Translation. A very angry Vraxxian authority figure was coming to collect their cubs, and everyone in this building was probably going to die. Captain James Astrid arrived at the council chambers wearing his diplomatic uniform and the expression of someone who'd heard worse ideas. Let me get this straight, he said, scanning the room. You've locked my daughter in a room with a dozen baby murder lizards. The parents are on their way, and your plan is… what exactly? Wait and pray? We're exploring options, Zixith said stiffly. Great. Here's an option. Unlock the door. The council chamber erupted. Absolutely not. Are you insane? The Vraxxians are in a protective formation. Any intrusion could trigger… Astrid held up a hand. They're protecting her. You all see that, right? He pointed at the live feed. They're not hunting. They're guarding. If we send in security, armed personnel, that's when someone gets hurt. Your suggestion is to do nothing, Krell asked. My suggestion is to let me talk to my daughter. Silence. You want to walk into that room, Zixith said, unarmed, alone, and negotiate with juveniles of a species that considers negotiation a form of foreplay to violence? Astrid smiled. Do you have a better idea, or are we just going to wait until someone needs a bathroom? This is madness. This is Tuesday for humans. Astrid was already walking toward the door. Either unlock it, or I'll find a maintenance shaft. Your choice. Krell watched the council members exchange looks. Every species had different body language, but the universal expression for, we're going to regret this, was apparently consistent across the galaxy. If you die, Zixith said, Earth will declare war. If I die, Astrid corrected, my wife will declare war. Earth will just provide the ships. The vote took 30 seconds. Unlock the doors. Let the human try. Because what else were they going to do? Astrid approached the recreation sphere while the entire council watched via live feed. Every eye, every sensor, every species with functioning survival instincts holding their collective breath. The blast doors opened with a hydraulic hiss. 12 Vraxxian cubs spun toward the sound, scales flashing threat crimson, claws extending. Astrid stepped through, alone, unarmed, not even wearing body armor. Daddy! Mira jumped up and ran toward him. The cubs moved to intercept, then stopped, confused, as Astrid simply knelt and hugged his daughter. Hey, sweetheart. Making friends? Uh-huh. This is Kareth, and that's Vesh, and that's Dren, and… Mira pointed to each cub. They hadn't moved, hadn't attacked, just stood there, heads tilted, trying to process a human who showed zero fear. Astrid looked up at 12 apex predators. They looked down at one human. So, Astrid said, standing slowly, who wants to teach me the block game? Kareth made a sound, low, rumbling, untranslatable at first. The computer struggled, processing, until finally rendering it as, this human is either incredibly brave or functionally insane. Astrid grinned. Little bit of both, buddy. Now Mira says you're pretty good at building. That true? Kareth's scales shifted to uncertain green. I achieved satisfactory results. Show me. And just like that, the most dangerous standoff in recent galactic history ended with a 7-year-old's father learning to stack blocks with creatures designed for war. In the council chamber, Zixith made a note in their official log. Recommendation. Never allow humans near any situation we intend to control. They will make friends with it, adopt it, or weaponize it. Possibly all three. Krell watched Captain Astrid sit cross-legged among the cubs, laughing as Vesh's tower collapsed for the 3rd time. Humans, Krell whispered. They're going to get us all killed or save us all. I can never tell which. On screen, Mira was teaching her father the hand-clapping game, while Kareth looked on with what could only be described as interest. The High Command emissary was still en route. This was going to get so much worse before it got better. The 3 Vraxxian dreadnoughts dropped out of hyperspace like hammers from heaven. Alarms screamed across the academy. Emergency protocols activated. Every species with a functioning survival instinct started calculating escape routes. They weren't supposed to arrive for another hour, someone said. Krell watched the tactical display. 3 warships, each one capable of reducing a planet to glowing debris. Each one currently in high orbit, weapon systems very much online. Incoming transmission, his comm officer announced, voice shaking. The holographic projection materialized. High Commander Threscal, 9 feet tall, scales like volcanic glass, eyes that had witnessed the conquest of star systems. I am here, Threscal said, each word precisely controlled, to retrieve my warriors, and to discuss reparations for the insult to Vraxxian honor. Krell's mouth went dry. High Commander, I assure you, no insult was. My cubs were placed in a threat environment. With a human. Without proper combat supervision. Threscal's scales shifted to threat crimson. Explain why I should not consider this an act of war. In the background, Krell could hear Captain Astrid's voice. Because they're having fun? Everyone turned. Astrid stood in the doorway of the recreation sphere, datapad in hand, looking remarkably unconcerned for someone addressing a living weapon of mass destruction. Captain Astrid, Krell hissed, not helping. High Commander, Astrid said, stepping forward. Your cubs are safe, happy even. Why don't you come see for yourself? Threscal's eyes narrowed. You dare suggest I'm suggesting you check on your kids. That's what parents do, right? The hologram flickered. For a moment, nobody breathed. Prepare for my arrival, Threscal said. I will retrieve them personally. The transmission cut. Well, Astrid said, that went better than expected. Better than... Krell's species didn't have blood pressure, but he was pretty sure his equivalent was spiking. He's coming here. To this building, where his cubs are playing with blocks. Yeah. Astrid checked his datapad. We've got maybe 20 minutes. Think we can teach them to make a welcome banner? 17 security checkpoints. That's what the council insisted on. 17 different verification points between the landing pad and the recreation sphere. Each one staffed by increasingly nervous security personnel who had to scan, verify, and clear a Vraxxian High Commander. Threscal moved through them like a battleship through fog. Checkpoint 1. Biological scan, please, High Commander. Checkpoint 5. Sir, we need to verify your... Yes, sir. Right away, sir. Checkpoint 11. The security officer just waved him through without speaking. By checkpoint 17, the guards simply abandoned their post. Krell met him at the final door. High Commander, before you enter, I should explain. Step aside. The cubs they've been engaged in non-combat activities. Step. Aside. Krell stepped aside. Threscal entered the recreation sphere expecting trauma. Battle stress. Perhaps cubs huddled together, damaged by exposure to a human's unpredictable nature. What he found made his combat-hardened brain stutter. Kareth sat in the center of the room wearing a construction paper crown. Colored markers had been used to write Best Builder across the front in what Threscal's translator insisted was enthusiastic human-child handwriting. Mira stood nearby, holding a clipboard. And the winner is... Kareth. Again. The other cubs made sounds that the translator rendered as applause. Threscal's scales cycled through 6 colors in 3 seconds. Confusion, anger, more confusion, something that might have been concern. What, he said slowly, is happening? Mira looked up. Oh. Are you Kareth's dad? He talks about you all the time. Astrid appeared at Threscal's elbow. High Commander, good timing. We were just about to start the next round. Juice box? He held out a small carton with a straw. Threscal stared at it, then at Astrid, then at his son, who was carefully adjusting his paper crown. Explain, Threscal said, his voice dangerously quiet. Now. Why my son looks happy. The word seemed foreign in his mouth, like he'd never had cause to use it before. Astrid pulled up a chair, gestured for Threshold to sit. The High Commander remained standing, so Astrid shrugged and sat anyway. Your cubs are kids, Astrid said. Just like Mira's a kid. Kids play, kids learn. Kids need socialization, structure, and someone to teach them that failure is okay. He nodded, toward Kareth. Your son's really good at building, by the way. Natural engineer. Vraxxian cubs train, Threshold said. They do not play. Maybe that's the problem. The temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. Threshold's scales went pure black. You dare question Vraxxian child-rearing? I'm questioning whether your cubs have ever had a chance to just be cubs. Astrid stood, unflinching. Look at them. Really look. Threshold turned. Kareth was showing Vesh how to stack blocks in a spiral pattern. Dren was sorting colored pieces by shade. 3 others were attempting to build a bridge between 2 towers. They were focused, intent, problem-solving. But their scales. They weren't battle crimson or threat black. They were calm blue, content green. Colors Threshold had never seen in a training facility. Kareth was sad, Mira said, walking up to the High Commander without fear. He told me nobody would play with him before. Everyone was too scared. Scared? Threshold looked down at the human child. They should be scared. We are Apex. Yeah, but he's not scary. He's nice. He helped me reach the high blocks. He shares. He says please and thank you. Threshold's translator struggled with the concepts. Watch, Astrid said. As if on cue, 2 cubs reached for the same block, started to growl, then stopped, looked at each other. You may have it, one said. No, you require it for your structure. I will select another. Thank you for your consideration. Threshold's world tilted slightly on its axis. We taught them that, Mira said proudly. Using words instead of scary sounds. A small voice, Dren, if Threshold remembered correctly, called out, Father Threshold! Look what I made. Threshold turned. Dren was holding up a drawing, crude, done with markers that smeared, but recognizable. It was Threshold, standing tall, powerful, labeled in shaky lettering. My dad is strong. Threshold took the drawing with claws that had ended battles, held it like it might shatter. You drew this? His voice came out wrong, cracked at the edges. Mira showed me how. Do you like it? For the first time in documented history, a Vraxxian High Commander's carefully maintained emotional control wavered. Something in his chest, something he'd thought was pure military conditioning, shifted. Threshold looked at the drawing, at his son's expectant face, at the other cubs, watching. I like it very much. Dren's scales flashed pure gold. Joy. When had Threshold last seen a cub display joy? When had he last felt it himself? Astrid smiled. See? Kids. They just want their parents to be proud of. The alarms cut him off. Different alarms, not the security system. External threat warnings. Hostile vessel detected, the automated system announced. Unidentified craft breaching Academy airspace. Defense systems offline. Repeat, defense systems offline. Krell's voice crackled over the comm. It's pirates. They must have detected. The dreadnoughts and assumed we're distracted. They're going for a quick raid before. The feed cut to static. An explosion rocked the building. Mira grabbed Astrid's hand. The cubs shifted instantly to combat formation, but this time something was different. They weren't surrounding Mira to hunt her. They were surrounding her to protect her. Kareth's scales went battle crimson, but his position stayed between Mira and the door. Father, he said, voice steady. We will defend. Threshold heard the distant sound of breaching charges, weapons fire. The pirates were inside the building, and they were heading straight for the recreation sphere. How many? Threshold demanded. Unknown, Astrid said, checking his datapad. But our security teams are locked behind protocol doors. We're on our own. Then we move the cubs to... No. Kareth's voice, firm, decided. We will not abandon Mira. The other cubs rumbled agreement. Threshkal looked at his son, at the paper crown still perched on his head, at the determination in eyes that had learned to build before they'd learned to kill. You would fight? Threshkal asked. We would protect, Kareth corrected. She taught us words. Sharing. Kindness. His claws extended. Now we teach others that some things are worth protecting. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed in the corridor. Multiple hostiles, armed, dangerous, heading straight for them. Threshkal's combat instincts activated. Tactical assessment, threat evaluation, strategic positioning. Then he looked at his son, at Mira, who'd somehow taught apex predators to care about someone other than themselves. At Captain Astrid, who stood unarmed but unafraid. Very well, Threshkal said, scales shifting to Warblack. Then let us teach them together. The door exploded inward, and the pirates learned why you should never ever threaten a Vraxxian's pack, even if that pack was 5 minutes old. The pirates made their first mistake when they chose this academy. Their second mistake was thinking the lockdown chaos meant easy pickings. Their final mistake was not running when they had the chance. 6 of them, battle-scarred, professional. The kind of mercenaries who raided colony ships and disappeared into uncharted space. They'd breached the hull 60 meters from the recreation sphere, cutting through the exterior wall like tissue paper. The facility's defenses were still offline, caught in the cascading failures from the earlier lockdown. Security teams remained trapped behind blast doors that were never designed for rapid reversal. By the time anyone could respond, it would be too late. The pirates moved fast, efficient. They'd done this before. Kick in the door, secure the hostages, transmit demands, collect payment, leave. Simple. The lead pirate, a Kreshtar with cybernetic enhancements and scars that told stories, planted a breaching charge on the recreation sphere door. His team stacked up. Professional formation. Remember, he growled to his crew, we need them alive. Hostages don't pay when they're dead. The charge detonated. The door blew inward. They stormed through expecting children, teachers, easy targets. What they found made the lead pirate's combat-enhanced brain stutter. 12 Vraxxian juveniles, arranged in a defensive formation. Scales black as void, claws fully extended. And in the center, protected like precious cargo, one human child and her father. Oh, the lead pirate said. Oh, that's not... Kareth made a sound. It started low, subsonic. The kind of sound that activated every prey species' instinct evolution had ever coded into biological organisms. A sound that hadn't been heard outside Vraxxian war zones in centuries. The war call of a Vraxxian protecting its pack. The other cubs joined in. 12 voices, harmonizing in a frequency designed to paralyze, to terrify, to announce that death was coming and it would not be quick. The pirates were professionals. They'd faced Vraxxian adults before. They knew the threat. But they'd never faced cubs who'd learned something more dangerous than hunting. They'd never faced cubs who'd learned to care. The first pirate raised his weapon. Stand down or... Kareth moved. Not with the wild aggression of youth. Not with the reckless abandon of inexperience. He moved with purpose. With strategy. With the singular focus of protecting something precious. His claws caught the pirate's weapon, shearing through reinforced alloy. His tail swept the Kreshtar's legs. 300 pounds of apex predator turned momentum into devastation. The pirate went down. The others opened fire. But the cubs were already moving, spreading out, using tactics they'd learned from birth but applying them with a new directive. Protect, not hunt. Vesh took a plasma bolt meant for Mira, his scales absorbing the impact. Dren flanked left, cutting off the pirate's escape route. The others created a living wall of obsidian scales and controlled fury. Behind them, Astrid pulled Mira close. Daddy! They're fighting! Mira's voice was small, scared. I know, sweetheart. But we taught them to use their words. From the defensive formation, Kareth's translator crackled to life. We tried words. They chose violence. A pirate swung a shock baton at Dren. The cub caught it, absorbed the electrical discharge without flinching, and broke the weapon in half. Guys, Mira called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. Use your words. Kareth paused. Actually paused in the middle of combat. Looked back at the human child who'd taught him to share. His scales shifted. Battle crimson to something darker. More primal. These, he said, claws extending, are our words. He turned back to the pirates. The Vraxxian definition of words apparently included actions that would require significant medical intervention. It lasted 90 seconds. 3 pirates retreated, scrambling over each other to escape back through the breached hull. 2 dropped their weapons and surrendered, hands raised, babbling about mercy. 1 required immediate medical attention and would be recovering in the station's hospital for approximately 6 weeks. The cubs held position, breathing hard, scales scarred from plasma fire, but standing, protecting. Mira was untouched. Not even her paper crown collection had been disturbed. High Commander Threshkal stormed in with a security team, weapons ready, expecting carnage. What he found made him stop. His cubs, bloodied but victorious, still maintaining defensive formation around the human child and her father. Kareth's paper crown hung crooked on his head, one corner burned from a near-miss plasma bolt. But he stood straight, proud. Father, Kareth said, we protected them. Threshkal looked at his son, at the other cubs, at the surrendered pirates who'd made the catastrophic mistake of threatening a Vraxxian's pack, even if that pack was 90 minutes old. You did, Threshkal said quietly. Astrid was already typing on his datapad. Ambassador Krell is going to love this incident report. What do I put? Defended by apex predator kindergartners? Is that a category? Captain Astrid, Krell's voice crackled over the comm. Please tell me everyone's alive. Define everyone. The humans and the cubs. Oh, them? They're fine. The pirates, less so. A pause. Then, I'll prepare the diplomatic paperwork. The Galactic Council convened within the hour. Emergency session number 2. The day was breaking records. Their declaration was carefully worded. An unprecedented act of interspecies cooperation. What they meant, but didn't say. Proof that humans could weaponize literally anything, including friendship, and were terrified. Mira tugged on Kareth's clawed hand. Can you come back tomorrow? We're doing arts and crafts. I want to make friendship bracelets. Kareth looked to his father. Threshkal observed his son. Scales scratched from battle, crown crooked, holding the human child's hand like it was the most natural thing in the galaxy. Everything he'd been taught about Vraxxian development said this was wrong. Cubs didn't form attachments. They didn't protect other species. They conquered. But Kareth's scales were showing a color Threshkal had never seen in a combat scenario. Contentment gold. The Vraxxian cubs will return, Threshkal rumbled. But we will be watching. Mira beamed. Yay. I'll save you the good crayons. 3 weeks later, the Recreation Sphere had a new designation. Cross-Species Integration Zone 23. Inside, Mira taught 14 different species children how to build towers that wouldn't fall, how to share without fighting, and how to use your words instead of their species-specific threat displays. The Vraxxian cubs attended daily, with Threshkal's personal approval and supervision. Always supervision. 3 Vraxxian warriors stationed outside, watching their young learn things that had no place on a battlefield. Except maybe they... Did Ambassador Krell filed his report to the Council. His hands shook as he typed, "The human child has accomplished more diplomatic progress in 3 weeks than we managed in 3 decades. Request: we never tell humanity what they've done. They might try to formalize it." Dr. Velis added his own notes to the xenobiology database. Note to future researchers: when studying apex predators, remember to account for the human variable. They don't conquer through strength. They conquer through making you want to protect them. And somehow, impossibly, it works. In the recreation sphere, Kareth and Mira worked together on a block tower. Human and Vraxxian. Soft hands and killing claws, building something neither could create alone. Higher, Mira said. Structural integrity is compromised, Kareth observed. That's okay. We'll catch it together if it falls. Kareth's scales shifted to warm amber, a color the translators struggled with. Something between trust and joy, and something that didn't have a Vraxxian word. Until now. He made a sound. Low. Gentle. The translators flickered, uncertain. Threshcall, watching from the observation window, disabled the automatic translation. Some words were too important to filter through machines. They gave us a word we didn't have, Kareth rumbled to Mira, in pure Vraxxian. The human child didn't understand the language, but she understood the meaning. She took his clawed hand in her small one. Friend, she said. Friend, Kareth agreed. And the galaxy would never be quite the same.